What's up, guys? Orcus here, and man, what a race yesterday. I wish I could have made a video as soon as that race was done, but it was like 10:30, and yeah, I just need to go to bed. And yeah, I'm probably a lot more energetic now, but I probably would have still brought the energy last night because of how exciting that race was. Honestly, one of the best races of the year for sure so far, and we still got all the playoffs left to go. And I wouldn't expect, the playoffs to have better races than this, but, anything can happen in 2024. So this year has been a very wild year, and Daytona number two just proves that. I mean, I think we got to talk about the biggest headline of the race, in my opinion. Harrison Burton wins at Daytona and thus locks himself into the playoffs for certain in the playoffs. That is crazy. Harrison Burton, mind you, was last in points for full-time Cup drivers. He was dead last in points for Cup drivers, and based off of points, he still is. Even though he won this race, he's still last in full-time driver points. That's insane. Literally the last person in the point standings is in the playoffs. That's crazy. And he wins this race. And I know there's a lot of chatter around this. A lot of people are being negative about this. Like, how can the worst driver in the full-time Cup series be in the playoffs? And I totally get it. 100%. I do think they need to make some changes to the playoff format, but honestly, we can worry about that later. I've seen a lot of complaining online, but I want to be basically 100% positive this race, because this race, in my opinion, was almost 100% positive. The racing in this at Daytona, it was amazing. I mean, Daytona's clearly still got it. I mean, still one of the best race tracks obviously in the Cup Series, in racing, one of the best races in all of racing, to be honest. Like, it's still got it for sure. Atlanta, the first Daytona and the first Atlanta, honestly, in my opinion, was clearly better. And I feel like Atlanta might still be better than this race, but this race really, really showed out. Definitely better than the first Daytona race, in my opinion. And it seems like that's how it's been going the last few times, where the second Daytona race is better than the first one. I feel like it's been like that for like the last two or 3 years. But yeah, this race was really special. And again, Harrison Burton winning, just what that means for Harrison Burton, what that means for his father, what that means for the Wood brothers. It's the Wood brothers' 100th win, and we know that the Wood brothers, very important staple in NASCAR history. Like, it doesn't get any better than this. Just very big congratulations for Harrison Burton, and we know he's going to be possibly out of a ride next year, might not be in the Cup Series next year, but even though he knew he was getting fired from this team, he still gave it his all, still wanted to win as much as he ever has, and yeah, just holding off one of the best in the business, Kyle Busch, in order to get the win. I mean, Kyle Busch led the last 2 laps, and I think it was coming off of turn 2. Harrison Burton takes the lead, and that's that. Harrison Burton defends it, and he's the winner. And again, just very, very, very special to see that for Harrison Burton. Obviously very emotional, and as he should be. Just an amazing moment for him and his family, and for the Wood brothers. Just amazing all around. And again, we know he's going to not be in this ride next year. Josh Berry, ironically, which we'll get to why that's ironic later, is going to be in this spot. And, a lot of good things I think can happen with Josh Berry and the Wood brothers. We obviously know Harrison Burton hasn't had the best time in this ride the last 3 years, and again, obviously he's going to be out of the ride, but we'll see where he goes from there. I think Harrison Burton has a good chance to stay in one of the main 3 NASCAR series, whether it be truck or Xfinity, I think he's going to get a ride. I think, what he did in his rookie year in the Xfinity series proves he can be a good driver. He just needs the right stuff and, the right tools and everything to be successful. And again, he was the rookie of the year in 2020 for the Xfinity series. He won 4 races. Like, he's got talent. There's no doubting that. Harrison Burton has talent. You can't just go into the Xfinity series and win 4 races. That just doesn't happen for a normal driver. You have to be really good, even in the Xfinity series, in order to do that. Like, I think he has talent, and I hope he gets what he deserves, whether it be in the truck series and the Xfinity series. And I think he'll have a great rest of his career, no matter what happens, even though this demotion, this firing, has gotten him out of this ride. And again, congratulations to Harrison Burton. If you're angry about Harrison Burton winning, I don't understand you. I get it if you're mad about it because of the playoff system, or maybe it's because, Bubba Wallace Jr. and Ross Chastain are now both off of the cut line, and we'll talk about that later for the playoffs. But if you're mad specifically about Harrison Burton winning this race and you don't like him for that, I just don't know what to say to you. Like, this was an amazing moment for the sport, regardless of the playoffs. Like, if you think about it, in like 2 years, nobody's going to care that that he took a playoff spot and all this other stuff happened. Nobody's going to care about that. When people look at this race like 2 years from now, people are going to remember, oh my gosh, this was the first time Harrison Burton won the Cup Series. Oh, he was there with his father. Like, his father was broadcasting and announcing the race when he won. He got to see his son down there, and the Wood brothers got their 100th win. That's what people are going to be talking about in the future. No one's going to be complaining about, oh yeah, I remember this race. Harrison Burton took a playoff spot and knocked out people that deserve to be in the playoffs. Like, no, people aren't going to be saying that. And it doesn't even matter, because like, even if like Buescher, Gibbs, Chastain, or Wallace get knocked out of the playoffs, it's not like they were going to make a championship 4 run anyway. I think we can all agree on that. Like, I've seen enough of these drivers to know they're not another Ryan Blaney from 2023. These drivers, I don't think, have the capabilities of making a championship 4 push and winning the championship. I just don't see that from any of these drivers that are on the cut line. And yes, while it would be nice to see these drivers who probably deserve a playoff spot to actually make the playoffs over some of these guys that have won, I get that, but at the same time, does it really even matter in the end? It's not like they're going to make a deep playoff run anyway. I mean, we can watch, like, I think, again, from now, so now that Harrison Burton has won, who do I think is going to make the playoffs? And if I'm being real, I think it's going to be Truex, Gibbs, and Buescher. I know that's a safe pick because Wallace and Chastain are now under the cut line, but if you look at it, I think it's a safe pick. There is a chance Chastain could have a really good run at Darlington. There is a chance someone like Kyle Busch, maybe even Eric Jones, wins at Darlington and knocks out like possibly Ty Gibbs or Chris Buescher. There's a chance that Truex has a collapse and like Gibbs or Buescher overtake his spot. There's a lot that can happen, but we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, this really shakes up a lot. But again, I think we just have to celebrate this win, not be so negative. And I know for NASCAR fans, that's a hard task to not be negative about something, but I think you got to look at all the positives here, and we can worry about the negatives, like, I don't know, 2 weeks from now when the playoffs actually start. Then you can complain. But at this time, I think we got to celebrate this win and, how good it is for the sport of NASCAR. And, for hardcore fans, I understand the frustrations. I do. But, you got to think about what this means for, new viewership, the casual audience. I think, seeing this race, people seeing that this underdog in Harrison Burton has won and made the playoffs, that probably gets a lot of attention. I'll be honest. And again, I understand the frustrations. I don't think Harrison Burton should be in the playoffs either. I don't like the playoff format because of the win and you're in system and, the people that have won this year. Like, think about it. If Austin Dillon actually had a legitimate win like he should have, and made the playoffs, there'd be like you have Austin Cindric, you have Daniel Suarez, now you have Harrison Burton, and you almost had Austin Dillon in the playoffs too. That would be crazy. And I do think the playoff system needs a revamp. It needs an adjustment. But again, we can talk about that later. We can worry about that later, because this was an amazing race. Other than Harrison Burton winning, the racing was amazing. We were going 3 wide, 2 wide. Sometimes we had a little bit of a mini train going on. It was just amazing. We got to see a ton of people leading the field. We got to see people like Bubba Wallace, Justin Haley, McDowell, Gilliland, and a lot of others like Logano, Keselowski leading the field. So many people leading the field at the time. Josh Berry especially. Josh Berry won a stage and was looking like really good to win this race. And yeah, it was just an amazing race. Again, McDowell as well had an amazing race. And yeah, the racing was just amazing. Probably the best Daytona race I've watched. I think even better than last year's summer Daytona race, to be honest. Yeah, this race was really good in my opinion. And it was pretty clean too for the most part until we start getting to the second half of the race, where we started seeing some troubles. We had the big one where Corey LaJoyce, pushes. It seems like he's pushing Noah Gragson too hard, and Noah Gragson gets in, and the big one happens. It wasn't really an insanely big one, but you had I think 8 or 10 people involved in that one, but and a couple people out of the race after that one. You had the Daniel Suarez moment on pit road where Denny Hamlin's fire out of the exhaust comes and ignites spilled gasoline and goes right into Daniel Suarez's that was just crazy, and ends up ruining his day. Like, his whole front bumper of Daniel Suarez's car was just absolutely melted off. That was an insane moment. Unfortunate for Daniel Suarez. I think he could have had a good race today. We've seen that he can win on a drafting track. We saw him do that in Atlanta, but just unfortunate end to his day. He ended up finishing last. And then we saw another interesting thing happen where, Eric Jones has a problem, and then Shane Van Gisbergen engine absolutely blows up. That was an insane moment. There was another big one. McDowell almost goes over, literally sideways. Fortunately, gets back on his wheels, and unfortunately misses the catch fence and misses Bowman as well. If he got into Bowman's door there, that could have been a bad wreck for Bowman. I mean, McDowell was flying through the air. Fortunately, he only hit the rear of Bowman and not, in his door, by his window net. That could have been bad. Fortunately, though, McDowell ends up only basically a half flip, ends up going back on his wheels before doing a full flip. So that's good. But a lot of the field was wrecked on that one. Joey Logano wrecked. And there was another big one. I can't remember what happened, but Kyle Larson ended up wrecking, ended his day. There was just so much stuff that happened. And probably the biggest wreck was the Josh Berry incident where they're racing. You got not Daniel Hemrick. You got Austin Cindric, Josh Berry side by side. 2 laps left to go in the race, and unfortunately, Josh Berry just gets spun, and he ends up going for a little tumble. Ends up on his roof, slides through what would have been the grass, I believe, but when the Ryan Preece incident happened last year, they repaved that stuff. All the grass is gone, but instead of the grass, Josh Berry just goes sliding through the concrete right into the inside wall, and that was a hard hit, especially when he was on his roof. That could have been a bad hit, but fortunately, Josh Berry was okay. The safety of these cars is amazing. I mean, I can't imagine what this could have been like if this happened in the Gen 4 era, or Gen 4 or lower, maybe even Gen 5 or lower. That could have been a bad wreck there. But fortunately, these cars are super safe, and that didn't happen. I guess NASCAR, I don't even know if they can like fix this, flipping incident. We saw 2 flips last week at Michigan of all tracks, and now we saw basically almost 2 flips this week. There was none in the Xfinity Series race, thankfully, but McDowell almost went over, and Josh Berry went over in a hard hit into the inside wall while on his roof. Like, I don't know what NASCAR is going to do to fix this. They already tried to fix it with like the right, I don't know what you would call it. I forget the name of it, but on the left side of the car's rear, they have like this wing, and they added another one of those on the right side, but that really didn't help, as we saw. It almost looked like it helped with McDowell's incident, but then we saw with Josh Berry, it didn't help at all. And just, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff this race. And then, of course, the final overtime. There was only one overtime, which was nice. And, it looked like Kyle Busch was going to win the race. I mean, everyone's pick, like, Kyle Busch was the favorite in this race. He stayed. There was a lot of wrecks, and Kyle Busch managed to steer clear of all of them. And on the final lap, he was looking poised to win this race. But then Harrison Burton, of all people, getting pushed by Parker Retzlaff, who Parker Retzlaff was actually supposed to be helping Kyle Busch because they're Chevy teammates. And, I'm pretty sure Beard Motorsports, which Parker Retzlaff was racing for, he was supposed to, like, they get their help from RCR. They get help from RCR. So he was supposed to be helping Kyle Busch. But, Parker Retzlaff was pushing Kyle Busch. Christopher Bell was the one pushing Kyle Busch. Christopher Bell was pushing Kyle Busch, and Retzlaff was pushing Burton. I'm pretty sure the spotter or crew chief was telling Retzlaff to not push the 21, but, like, what is Parker supposed to do? Parker wants to win this race too, so it's like he kind of has to push Harrison Burton if he wants to get up front, so that's what he does. Unfortunately, after he did this, it seemed like the outside lane kind of collapsed. Before that, it was the inside lane that kind of collapsed, which allowed the run for Retzlaff and Burton. And yeah, just chaos broke loose, and Harrison Burton, one of the biggest underdogs in this race, won. Just amazing race, and really nothing more to say about it. Just a great race. And yeah, one of my favorite races of the year so far. It's definitely up there with Kansas and close to Atlanta. But yeah, just a great race in general. I'll go over the drivers real quick. Harrison Burton and Kyle Busch, obviously, first and second. Christopher Bell hung in for a good finish of third. Cody Ware, I mean, if you picked Harrison Burton and Cody Ware to be in the top 5 this race, you have a lot of money in your bank account now. Cody Ware, 4th place, that's crazy. Ty Gibbs in 5th, Bubba Wallace in 6th, a good finish, but we'll get to the playoff standings. It's 6th place isn't good enough for Bubba Wallace, and you saw the interview. He was definitely, just angry at everything. Like, he wasn't angry like on camera, but like you could tell how disappointed and like pissed off he was about this. But that's just racing, and I had Bubba Wallace making the playoffs as well as Ross Chastain, but now it looks like it's crazy because I picked Gibbs, Buescher, Chastain, and Bubba Wallace to make the playoffs, but now it looks like at least 2 of them are not gonna make it. Like, it's just insane this year. I mean, I'm going to go over my picks for the playoffs and point standings, and it's going to just be all over the place. It'll be something else, that's for sure. But, yeah. Parker Retzlaff, by the way, who was pushing Burton, ends up 7th. I saw he got into the outside wall at the end, but still managed 7th place. Keselowski, 8th place. He was spinning at the end, but still got the 8th place, so good for him. Daniel Hemrick in 9th place, another solid finish for Hemrick at a drafting track. And Buescher rounds out the top 10. Good for him. He is in the points to the good. So if no new winner wins this race, Buescher is looking good to make the playoffs. So yeah, it'd be good for him. Hopefully he can have a good day, and hopefully he can win just to pad him and make him safe. But he has to hope that he has a good run and Bubba Wallace and Ross Chastain either don't get the win or don't have a good run, and he has to hope no new winner either them or under doesn't win. And if that happens, he'll make the playoffs, and I do think that's what will happen. And yeah, we'll get to that. But Hocevar finishes 11th. Good run. He didn't seem to have a good car today. He was running like only specifically in the low 20s and 30s, but ends up with the 11th. Avoided the wrecks and, decent finish. Ross Chastain in 12th. We'll get to him as well, but, 12th isn't good enough for him. And yeah, we'll see that. Zane Smith, 13th. Briscoe, 14th. It seemed like Briscoe had a good car, but he just couldn't last on the long runs. But ends up with 14th, not terrible. John Hunter Nemechek was a really good car in this race, and unfortunately on one of the last laps, he got, close to the end of the race, with under 50 laps to go. I'm pretty sure he just got too much of a hard push by Larson and ended up spinning when he was up front, but it still ends up with the 15th. And honestly, he was running good at the final laps, but he picked the third lane on the outside, and that just didn't work out, so ends up 15th. Bowman 16th, Jones 17th, Cindric 18th, who was a really good car today as well, running up front a lot of the day. Just unfortunately found himself in the back. I think he had a little bit of damage, but I don't know. And then you had BJ McLeod and Joey Gase rounding out the top 20, so good runs for them. Just really good. And then I think after that, I think Joey Gase was the last person on the lead lap, I'm pretty sure. Either that or Kyle Larson, but I think Larson might have been 1 or 2 laps down. But Kyle Larson, 21st, was involved in one of the last wrecks, unfortunately. Larson was really aggressive today. He was running up front a lot, but just really aggressive. I think, he was partially to blame for a good amount of these wrecks that happened today. You could even put some of the blame on the Corey LaJoie and Noah Gragson incident. Larson was definitely pushing Corey LaJoie there, but I think Corey LaJoie, can rightfully take most of the blame there. But I mean, Kyle Larson, I don't think was doing him any favors in that incident either. Austin Dillon, 22nd, unfortunate. Todd Gillen, 23rd. It's so unfortunate what happened to front row. I mean, front row literally had the front row and just didn't have the race to show for it. Todd Gillen had such a good race, ends up 23rd. Martin Truex had problems right from the get-go in this race, basically, but ends up 24th. He's looking decently good. For point standings, I would be very surprised if he somehow finds himself out of the playoffs after this Darlington race. He's looking really good. I highly doubt he'll miss the playoffs, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Anything can happen in 2024, as we've seen. Austin Hill, 25th, Barry, 26th. That flip happened. He was running so good. Unfortunately, though, the flip happened. William Byron also running good at the end. Unfortunate, got caught up in that wreck, hit the outside wall hard. Ruined his day. Tyler Reddick, 29th. Tyler Reddick, 28th. Ryan Blaney, 29th. McDowell, 30th. Unfortunate for him. Again, running such a good race. He was in the lead when he wrecked, just like what happened in Talladega. Only this time it happened on lap 8 instead of the final lap. Just unfortunate for McDowell. I mean, the front row has had really good cars on these drafting tracks, just haven't had the finishes to show for it. Hopefully they can get a good finish at Atlanta at Talladega, because we still got 2 drafting tracks left for the Cup Series, so hopefully they can prove it at Atlanta or Talladega. Joey Logano had a really good car as well, ended up crashing out. Same with Justin Haley in 32nd, Ricky Stenhouse in 34th. Corey LaJoie was actually still running laps, even though he had a terrible car. He was still running laps. I think he was 30-something laps down, but hey, he didn't DNF, so good for him. Shane Van Gisbergen, like I said, had that engine problem, 35th. Chase Elliott wrecked out early in one of the first big ones, 36th. Same with Noah Gragson. This was the incident between him and Corey LaJoie that caused this. Noah Gragson out. And Denny Hamlin out from that wreck. And then I think Ryan Preece just had a bad car. I don't even think he was involved that much with that wreck, but just didn't have a good car. Ends up DNFing, unfortunately, for Ryan Preece, because he had a good qualifying. Just unfortunate the SHR had some issues, and that's what happened. And then, like I said, Daniel Suarez in 40th. So now let's get to the playoff standings. So with Harrison Burton locking himself into the playoffs, from 34th in points into the playoffs, that's just crazy. There's only there's only 3 spots left to make it into the playoffs off points, and if we get a new winner this week, there'll only be 2 people in the playoffs off of points. But we have Truex is not locked into the playoffs, but he has 58 points to the good, which is almost guaranteed into the win. But like I said, things can happen. Ty Gibbs is 20 points behind him. If there's a new winner, and like Ty Gibbs and like Chris Buescher have a way better race than him, things can happen. So he's not locked into the playoffs, but he's looking really good. I would be very surprised if he doesn't make it into the playoffs. But like I said, anything can happen. And then, like I said, Ty Gibbs is plus 39, so he currently has the 15th spot. And then Chris Buescher is plus 21 on Bubba Wallace. So Chris Buescher has the final spot in the playoffs as of now. And like I said, Bubba Wallace is in 17th. He's minus 21 on Chris Buescher. And then Chastain is minus 27th on Chris Buescher. So they have a lot to make up. I would say Wallace and Chastain either need to win or they need to get really lucky based off of point standings. And that's just going to be a really hard task for them. Darlington is a pretty, it's a hard race, and only really the best of the best succeed in it. Normally, you have people like Eric Jones that can do really good at that race for some reason, as we've seen him win it twice in, very mediocre equipment. So, he could do it again possibly, but there could also be someone like Kyle Busch who wins the race. So, again, anything can happen. So, the best of the best have to drive like the best of the best if they want to make the playoffs off of this last race in Darlington. But that's all I got for this race. Again, very good, almost a perfect race in my opinion. But again, it wasn't, the best super speedway race ever, but I still think it was a really good race. I would think I would give it a 90 out of 100, a 90%, or a 9 out of 10. So almost an S tier race in my opinion, but again, still a very good race. A to an A plus race in my opinion. So yeah, that's all I got for this one, and hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you at Darlington for the final regular season race.